You're listening to the Contented Catcast from St. Claus Academy with Lisa Sinnott. Email stclausacademy@gmail.com.
So welcome to the Contented Catcast. I'm really delighted to be here with Madison and Jeff today from Cats Protection. Jeff is an advocacy and influence director at Cats Protection, the UK's largest animal cat welfare charity. Madison, she is also a part of the team, and she is a associate director of advocacy campaigns and external affairs at Cats Protection. How are you, Madison and Jeff?
Yeah, we're good, thank you. Thanks for having us along.
Oh, no, delighted to have you here. Thank you so much. So could you tell us how people, just like, you know, me, could get involved? Because obviously I see a lot of things online that upset me. And I think rather than getting into kind of a war online, if you like, kind of keyboard warrior online, which probably doesn't reach maybe as many people as you hope or actually make a difference. How do you think people can get involved if they see something they don't like, whether that be Scottish fold cats that are suffering or flat-faced cats that are suffering and can't breathe properly? How would you say we could get involved?
Yeah, I mean, it's always so great to hear from people that are passionate about animal welfare and cats specifically for us. In our jobs with MPs, we actually hear often that they get the most emails about animal welfare issues. So, you know, they know how important it is to people as well. It can be really upsetting with some of the things that get seen online and in the news. And sadly, cats aren't as well protected in the law as other animals. So at Cats Protection, in the advocacy team, our role is to speak up for cats and ensure that they've got a voice with decision makers, policy makers, to try and change those laws and ensure that they get the protections that they deserve. A really great way for people to be able to get involved is to look at charity websites and the advocacy work that's taking place to support any petitions, right to MP actions, input into consultations. Charities will always make it really easy for people to get involved as easily as possible. And for our campaigns to be successful, you know, we need as many voices as possible. So once you've signed something and put your name to it, it's always really helpful for people to then share that with their network, colleagues, family, friends, to get as many people as possible involved, so we can really create noise around that issue and ensure that it gets onto the political agenda.
Sure. Have you found that that it's important for MPs, animal welfare? Do you find?
Most definitely. Yeah, MPs are really supportive of animal welfare issues. Lots of them themselves are pet owners, both cat and dog, and sometimes other more exotic animals. So they're always really keen to show us photos and share their personal stories with us as well. But as I said, it really fills their post bag as well. So their constituents are really interested in animal welfare issues too. So yeah, it's great that we do have that support. However, sometimes we don't always kind of get the news that we want from government. So just before Christmas, we had the government's animal welfare strategy released, which is kind of their pathway of what they want to hope to achieve in the animal welfare space for the remainder of this parliament and up until 2030. Now, although there is, some really positive measures in there for animal welfare, at Cats Protection, we really felt disappointed that cats were missing from this strategy. We'd really hoped that the government would prioritise cat welfare and put in place measures to be able to protect cats from extreme breeding, to ensure that cats wouldn't suffer harm. So yeah, we've actually written to the government to try and encourage them to look at these issues, and we have a live action so people can get involved and support our campaign. So if people visit action.cats.org.uk/open letter, you can read all about what we've been saying to the government, and then sign up to help us support and make sure that cat welfare does stay a priority on the political agenda.
Absolutely, yeah, because I imagine there's lots of breeding of cats, like backyard breeding, guess we're going through a cost of living crisis, and people maybe are breeding cats, but obviously it's really important to breed healthy cats because they end up with you as well, I imagine. Have you seen an increase of cats that
Yeah, I
have
mean,
or...
Yeah, there are unscrupulous individuals out there who are just looking to put profit before welfare. And at the moment, there isn't even any guidance for cat breeding. So we really want the government to regulate this activity so we know how many people are breeding cats, and to make sure that they're following a set of rules that are set out to protect the welfare and make sure that those cats that are bred are happy and healthy. And a huge part of that is making sure that their innate health is looked after, so we're not seeing cats that are bred to suffer. But yeah, unfortunately, it can be the case that somebody buys a cat online and then they find that it actually has got health issues, be it from an extreme conformation or potentially from just poor breeding practice in general. And sometimes for people, they have no other option then but to relinquish that cat into our care. And there are very sad situations, where cats don't make it because they might have been taken away from their mother before 8 weeks of age, or what they're suffering from might just be so detrimental to their health. The best decision in those cases is to euthanize the cat. So it can be really heartbreaking for us as a charity, and we come across these cases, and we're always looking to try and prevent those things from happening. So as well as obviously providing the immediate care to animals that need us, the advocacy work is just so important to make sure that we tackle these issues at the root cause and address them through legislation, through guidance, through education, to make sure that, the animals out there are happy and healthy, and people who are looking to get a cat, which I have to say is one of the best experiences of my life. I love my cat. And she brings me so much joy. So anyone who says they're in the market for a pet, I'm always telling them to get a cat. But yeah, making sure that those people can make as a responsible choice as possible, and have all that information out there so that they don't get sort of deceived by people who are unscrupulous and, who have got some really manipulative techniques to kind of force people into buying kittens when they haven't maybe, done the necessary research.
Yeah, of course. What part do you think as celebrities have to play? Because I obviously saw the Cat Protection Conference last year, which was amazing, and I heard Jeff speak. What kind of things do you think are driving this? Obviously, social media, people see these beautiful, beautiful cats, but potentially don't, and their celebrities got one, and they're in a backpack and they're roaming around with them on tour. What kind of things do you think people, well, firstly, should think about when they see it, and what else do you think maybe celebrities could do?
So I think the temptation there, Lisa, is always to say, this is being driven by celebrities on social media, and the younger generation want to get a Scottish fold because Taylor Swift's got one. And undoubtedly, the activities of celebrities and influencers and the visibility of anything online can drive all sorts of behaviour. But I think it's a little bit of an oversimplification to say this is kind of purely being driven by celebrities. Actually, what we have here is a whole online industry that is increasingly built around more unusual, more extreme traits in cats. And if you go on one of the well-known online pet websites now and just have a look, immediately it pushes you towards pedigrees, and increasingly some of those pedigrees with worrying traits that actually will impact their health and welfare for life. So it's not just as simple as an individual factor. And what I would say is, I don't believe that the vast majority of cat owners that have Scottish folds or munchkins or some of these specific breeds are doing so because they don't care about the cats or about their cat's welfare. I genuinely believe in the vast majority of situations, it's a lack of awareness and it's a lack of understanding. And that's a prime example of where we need legislation and where we need government to step in to put some guardrails around this industry, as Madison says, to make sure that people aren't profiteering unscrupulously off the welfare of cats and make sure that people can be confident that when they are getting a cat, they're going to be getting a cat that is capable of living a long and healthy life. And it's why we were so angry, really, just before Christmas. And I do use the word angry very specifically with the lack of government action in their animal welfare strategy. It's not often you hear a charity come out and say that they're really angry, but we really, really are about this one because it's such an obvious, straightforward solution to regulate the breeding of cats, to make sure that their welfare is protected and that unscrupulous individuals aren't maximising the money they make at the expense of the welfare of their cats. The evidence base is there, it's clear for all to see, and rather than take meaningful action, really government have done little more than kick the can down the road. And that's why we're really, really keen to ask people to support us. Go to action.cats.org.uk/open letter and join us in sending a really, really strong message to government that they cannot abandon our cats and they have to speak up for our wonderful pets.
Yeah, absolutely. Why do you think they haven't taken action? Do you have any ideas of why you think that might be?
It's very difficult to tell. I mean, you'd have to ask government. I will say I think their animal welfare strategy that they launched just before Christmas really does lack almost anything of meaningful impact. It looks like a strategy that's designed to avoid doing much of anything for as long as possible. So again, there are many very good people working in government, working in DEFRA, the department responsible for much of animal welfare. However, there's an awful lot going on, and my concern is always that animals, pets, get pushed to the side in the realms of high politics because cats don't write stroppy letters to national newspapers. Cats don't complain.
Yeah.
Cats don't turn up to their MPs' clinics and tell them they're not doing their job. And that's where it really needs all of us to step into that space and make sure that we're really speaking up for cats because they just can't speak up for themselves.
Yeah. Voice for the voiceless, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I will put that petition. I signed it the other day. Actually, my friend sent it to me in the links, and if everyone who does sign it, can share it as well. Make some noise for cats and fly that feline flag. So I know Cats Protection did a lot of work for renters because people were finding a heartbreaking decision of having to find a new home and finding out that their landlords didn't allow cats. What kind of work did you do to get to that stage? Because I imagine with a lot of legal challenges, it can feel like an uphill mountain that we've got to climb, and it can take time. What kind of steps did you have to take to get that?
Yeah, I mean, cats coming, people not being allowed to rent with their cats is one of the top 5 reasons why cats come into Cats Protection. So, it's a real issue that the charity sees day in, day out, and it's really heartbreaking when we have those people coming to relinquish their cats because they really want to keep, their beloved pets. They don't want to have to make that decision. So yeah, it's really heartbreaking for the people involved and for the cats as well because they're losing their families. They're losing their families too. So because we were seeing this operationally, we really wanted to try and tackle this issue at its root cause, both through working with landlords, but also looking to see if the law could be improved to make it easier for people to rent with cats. So we've been campaigning on the issue for 10 years. And yeah, it's a bit of a reality check because it does take a long time for laws to pass and for us to be able to raise the profile of issues, provide the evidence needed to show that it's a problem, and for it to go through the parliamentary process as well. But I am delighted to say that last year the government passed the Renters' Rights Act, which will give tenants a right to request a pet which cannot be unreasonably refused by a landlord. And up in Scotland, we also had the Housing Act Scotland pass as well, which will give similar similar protections to tenants in private rented accommodation, but also goes a step further than the English Act and gives the same protections to tenants in social rented accommodation as well. So this is a huge leap forwards in giving people those rights to be able to ask about having a pet in their rented accommodation, and hopefully will have that knock-on effect for charities like Cats Protection, and we won't see as many people looking to relinquish a cat, and hopefully there'll be many more people out there that want to have a cat but have been prohibited up until now as well. We do an annual survey of cat owners called the Cats and Their Stats report, and data from that survey suggested that there are up to 500,000 households out there who would like a cat but can't because of rental issues. So optimistically, with the new law, we could see the biggest increase in cat acquisition that we've seen in a generation, probably since COVID, because there was quite a big spike there when people were in lockdown and wanted to have a companion. So I think, it's hopefully going to be really positive. And this issue for me has always been one close to my heart, because my lovely cat Moodles was given up to Cats Protection because her former owner's landlord wouldn't allow pets in rented accommodation. Moodles had actually had 3 owners before me, so she'd really had a difficult start to life. But at the time I was living in rented accommodation, and then wasn't allowed to have a cat. So I searched high and far, I did so many right move searches to try and find a property that was pet friendly. Had to live outside the kind of area that I wanted to, but that for me was so important that I was able to have a cat. Did eventually find a landlord, and Moodles has been with me ever since. But it was always a bit of a concern in the back of my head that, if that landlord decided to sell up, or if I did want to move for any reason, it would be really difficult for me to then take her with me. And I know many people, across the country would have the same reservations and the same feelings. So it's really positive that this new law is coming into force from May this year, to really give people a greater protection.
Nice.
And we really hope, as part of our jobs, as well as changing the law, that we'll get the message out there to cat owners so that they know that there's been this big change, and they can come to us and adopt if they are looking for a cat for the first time.
Yeah, because all I keep reading about is that that rescue centres are busting at the seams with animals at the moment for variety of different factors. So that's amazing. That's a wonderful step in the right direction. That's incredible.
Yeah, and I think, Lisa, what I'd say is that it's a brilliant example of how important advocacy and influencing work is in helping cats. People probably are most familiar with Cats Protection through the work of our staff and volunteers through our cat centres and branches, providing that rehoming service for cats in need. But if we want to really help the UK's cat population, we need to be able to deliver at an even greater scale. And the hundreds of thousands of homes that could be opened up through that change to legislation, through the Renters' Rights Act, is many times more than the entire capacity of every pen in every cat centre across the UK. So it just goes to show that, while we will always need that last line of defence in terms of rescue, actually prevention is always better than cure, and it gives us a chance to speak and to act up for cats at a scale that we've never been able to before.
Absolutely, yeah. Getting to one of the root causes of why relinquishment's happening, to help prevent in the first instance. Yeah, that's amazing. So I know recently last year there was kind of a viral social media campaign on TfL about 2 cats that were travelling on the tube outside of their carriers on harnesses. What work did Cats Protection do on that? Because I know for some people, I know a few people sent it to me and look at how cute this is, and I look at it with a different lens, but what work did Cats Protection do with those?
Yeah, we got sent that video as well, and I think, firstly to say that Transport for London were well-meaning, that they wanted to give people practical advice of how they can travel with their pets on the tube, but unfortunately for us, we did spot numerous welfare issues that were mentioned in the videos. As you've just said, cats were featured that were on harnesses, and they were also placed in backpacks as well. They were taken on the elevators, which actually went against TfL's own guidance. So yeah, we were deeply concerned that this would promote people taking their cats onto the tube or other modes of TfL transport, and would kind of normalise putting cats in stressful situations. So as Cats Protection, our advice is always to only travel with your cat when it's absolutely necessary. So for example, if you're taking your cat to the vets, cats are very territorial animals and they like their familiar environment. So they really don't want to be taken outside of their home or their local area. And it can be like really stressful for them in those sorts of situations. So yeah, we did write to TfL and spoke with their teams fairly swiftly to actually ask them to take the video down. Unfortunately, they didn't do that, but as a result of our conversation, they did make some edits to the caption in the video, which sort of reflected our advice and guidance. And then following on from that, we also met with a member of the London Assembly to raise our concerns here as well. And she came to visit one of our cat centres and was really helpful in putting us in touch with TfL, and then since then they have updated their website advice, and Cats Protection and RSPCA have worked jointly on that advice to make sure that it does reflect how we think people should travel responsibly with their pets. So cats and dogs, as well as other kinds of animals people may want to transport to the vets. So yeah, that's live now. So I think it's a really good example of how we're courageous as a charity. So when we see something that we don't think is in the best welfare for cats, we will call it out, and we'll make sure that there isn't misinformation out there and people know how to be responsible pet owners, especially when it does come down to causing animals kind of stress and discomfort. But I think it's also for us key that we do work with other stakeholders that interact with animals as well in as positive a way as possible. And yeah, TfL have been responsive and have included us to make sure that the advice on their website is concise and as pet friendly as possible.
Right. Yeah, because there's the risk there, isn't it? That, you're right. People, some people can't afford to get a taxi to the vet. And I'm not a fan of backpack carriers. One of my colleagues told me about having a backpack carrier on the front of the body so the cat's not jumping about, because I know some people do struggle with their cats getting into a carrier, which I thought was quite a good idea, rather than having a big knocky carrier that could knock around on the tube if they were traveling. But I think the risk is that when we see these things on social media, maybe people tend to think maybe, I can do that with my cat, and that can really stress them out. And obviously the videos and pictures are just a snapshot. It doesn't give a true reflection of that cat all the time. You can think of that in any kind of picture on social media. It's just a snapshot. It doesn't mean that they're not showing stress signs in other circumstances as well.
Yeah, and we all know in all walks of life that social media doesn't necessarily reflect the reality of what's going on, and this is no different. So what we'd say is really to anyone considering it, please make sure that you're putting the welfare of your cat first, and this is a situation where absolutely the priority has to be the welfare of the cat, rather than getting something that is going to get a few extra likes and look cute on Instagram.
Absolutely. And cats, obviously, as a prey and predator species, they can shut down easily. It might not be immediately obvious that they're really scared if they're not crying out or hissing or lashing out. If they're really scared, they can still, show those signs that they're being quiet and that they're okay, but actually they're shut down. So
yeah, we know how difficult cats are to read into. So much of their behaviour goes back to their evolutionary history as African wild cats, and in the wild, that's a species that, yes, they are predators, but they're also predated as well. So they do feel that threat. It's a very different beast, and understanding how to read a cat's behavior is a really important educational piece for anyone interacting with cats, whether it's your cat or someone else's, to make sure that you understand how they're feeling and what they need. And as you say, cats are very, very good at hiding when they're in pain or when they're scared. So understanding how they're feeling, what their needs are, and what we need to give them to allow them to live their best possible life is utterly essential.
Absolutely. So what would you recommend for someone if they see something on social media that they don't like? What would you recommend that they do? Do you think comment on it? Or I know I heard someone say, if you comment on something, then that obviously boosts the post and makes people more aware of it. It's tricky, isn't it? Because you want to say, I don't like that, or I'm worried about that, and raise awareness that it's a worrying trend, but also you don't want to kind of boost the profile on it. What would you say would be a good step?
I would say engage, and yes, it does promote it if you comment on it, but then you're promoting it with the positive messaging that you want to put out as well, and that can engender a really interesting conversation. I would also say, you can promote positive messaging around it to your own networks as well. So rather than just reposting a negative, think about how you can promote the positive that you want to see to kind of look after the cat's welfare. It is, of course, really important to say two things. One is that social media can be brilliant, but it can also be a really difficult environment as well. I'm sure all of us have had the experience of posting something on social media and then getting a load of negative comments. So just bear that in mind if you're putting yourself out there, is that does happen. As much as we might not want it to, it does happen. So beware of that and make sure you're comfortable with what you're saying and putting your name or possibly your face to that comment. And the other thing I'd say is, if you are, criticizing a behavior or pointing out someone that's doing something wrong, always assume positive intent in the person. That would be my kind of the last thing you want to do. None of us like to be told that we're doing something wrong. So actually, if you assume positive intent in the person, even if you think it's obvious, the more you can gently call them in, positively encourage them to change their behavior, it's so much more effective at actually changing behavior than getting all finger waggy and telling them they're doing it wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I would just add, if it is sort of disturbing or, alarming content that involves harm to animals, all social media platforms have got a report button.
Yeah.
So you can report it to moderators who can take down that post. And, there's also the RSPCA cruelty hotline as well that people can report to. So, yeah, if it is content that is really distressing and there's an animal in danger, it's always better to report it and get that content taken down.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what kind of if you could say top 3 things, if someone wanted to get involved in advocacy and helping cats, what things do you think they could do just as a roundup?
I think firstly, great if people want to get involved in advocacy, and especially if they want to support the work of Cats Protection. It's only through that, voice of many people that we can really speak up for cats and to get our issues onto the political agenda. You can visit the website cats.org.uk, find that open letter that we've mentioned a few times throughout the podcast, add your name, and then from there, there's really easy buttons to be able to share it with your friends and family, as we mentioned. And if there's other causes that you're interested in supporting, please do go and have a look at other charities' websites as well, because they will have similar actions that you can take. You can also independently write to your MP, if you're in the devolved administrations, to your elected representative, and they can take up that issue on your behalf in Parliament. And really don't underestimate the power of your voice. Many MPs stand up every day in Parliament to give individual testimonies that their constituents have written into them. So those stories are really powerful to get across a point on many different issues. And I think, just being passionate is really important as well. There's things that we all care about. And sometimes it is easy to sit back and think that you can't make a difference. But, if you just do one action, it's better than nothing. And, before you know it, if we've got 100,000 people doing an action, we can trigger a debate in Parliament. So it really is bringing people together to be able to have that collective voice, and for us at Cats Protection, we're having that voice for people, for animals, that can't speak up for themselves. Please basically just get involved as much as you can.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, and I just add that as well. Parliament is obviously a really important bit to it, whichever Parliament that is, wherever you're based in the UK. But also, you can write to your local newspaper, build a relationship, and actually just very basic things like conversations in your social groups down the pub with your friends' networks can be hugely influential in changing how people think about things, because people get their information from all sorts of places these days, from online, from the media. But one of the most trusted sources of information for people in all walks of life are their own community, whether that's people they live with, work with, play with. So if you're passionate about something, be prepared to talk up about it wherever you are. You would be amazed the impact that can have.
Yeah, it's amazing. Oh, thank you so much, Jeff and Madison.
No worries. Thank you
for having us.
So do check out that petition. I'm going to post it in the show notes, and do let us know what advocacy and how you're standing up for cats. It's really important that we're all getting involved, and like Jeff and Madison says, just chatting to your friends, are they thinking about getting a cat, what kind of breed, what kind of breeder, what rescue centre. Let's talk about these things and speak up for cats.